Here on The Colour of Country Life, we're chatting with Matt Dalgleish from Thomas Elder Markets, our first catch-up for 2022. Welcome back, Matt.
Thanks, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
Now, we've had a pretty interesting year last year, especially on the beef price in Australia. How have we kicked off 2022 on beef?
Yeah, look, for young cattle particularly, it's been a strong start. We've seen some really big moves early in the season. The Ecky's up at $11.80, actually $11.90 yesterday, so 10 cents short of $12 a kilo carcass weight, which is just extraordinary. And it's been mainly, again, restocking interest and particularly northern kind of buyers up in Queensland that are chasing those lighter animals that have been pushing this most recent move higher. Some of the other cattle pricing, the likes of your heavy steer and further along the chain, haven't been as aggressively increasing. They've just been sitting kind of stable since the close of last year.
All right, and just on the global market front, in terms of, I guess, trends in that direction, I know there's a live export factor there that might be more attractive to Queensland audiences, but what are we seeing? There's some global tensions, Russia and Ukraine, for instance. Is that going to filter into the meat markets?
Look, I think that's more something that's going to impact upon the grain side of the space, really, in terms of if there's some action there and any kind of invasion type actions going to get the grain market quite spooked. That could flow through eventually to beef in the feedlotting sector if we start to see, a big lift in international grain prices that kind of help to push Australian prices higher. But I think that's probably, it's going to be a grain impact before it flows through to meat.
All right, and on the cattle front, you were also talking about those younger weights. Was there sort of different movements on the pricing front for maybe the heavier weights?
Yeah, look, they still were increasing as well, but it's just one of those things with the restockers particularly trying to, when you're looking at $1 per head price, they can get a bit more value out of those younger, lighter animals. And so, when they're looking to put kilos on, if you the difference in a few kilos can be the difference between making money and losing money. So that's part of the reason why they were chasing those lighter ones. And you got to remember, Ricky, that the Ecky itself is a measurement of animals between 200 to 400 kilos. So it's a reasonably wide range. And so, yes, those higher end kind of animals into the 350 and above, they weren't seeing the types of gains in a per kilo sense that we saw with the lighter, younger stuff.
All right, well, let's have a look at what's been happening on the sheep front. They had a fairly solid tumble in the latter part of last year, largely which we would have expected. But how's the market moving at the start of this year? There were some processing disruptions that I think had a major impact, particularly in South Australia.
Yeah, that's right. The processing disruption there was actually in particular with regard to beef. The tease plant in Naracoorte had some issues with staff, quite a few. I think the final figure was about 140 of the staff had come down with COVID, so they had some real problems, and we actually saw beef processing drop away significantly because that's the main beef processing centre for South Australian animals. So I think last week, we saw only about just over 100 head of cattle processed for the whole of the state, and the normal level for this time of the year is about 4,000 head of cattle in a week, so it's a significant impact there. But we have seen also, like you're saying, on the sheep and lamb front, some issues as we spread into Victoria and into New South Wales with Omicron spread, and that's causing some significant issues in abattoirs there. A lot of the abattoirs have reported reductions in workforce availability between 30 to 50% in those southern abattoirs processing sheep and lamb. So we've seen quite a significant kind of drop away in the processing. If you look at East Coast processing totally, lamb processing is down about from this time last year. If you're looking comparing season on season, we're down in lamb processing in the East Coast about 15%, but sheep processing we're down about 32%. So much bigger impact to sheep. I think given we've still got a lot of lambs coming through the tail end, from the spring flush we saw last year. That means I think a lot of processors are favouring lamb instead of sheep. So that's part of the reason why I think with that limited kill space, they're just looking to get those lambs processed rather than worry as much about the sheep.
And just to be clear, from what you're tracking at Thomas Elder Markets, that's a persisting problem. That's not something that's eased in this most recent range of auctions.
In terms of the spread, look, there's been workforce issues all the way through last year with regards to the impact upon But both in terms of being able to supply the workforce with the restrictions of international travel. That's been an ongoing problem. And then in Victoria, we had again restrictions on numbers, which was difficult for processors to manage. But this most recent event has actually been a bit more widespread in the sense that it's the spread of this Omicron variety. And the government has done its best to try and speed up issues with the supply chain in terms of getting essential workers back to work. But at the end of the day, it's been very problematic in terms of one, being able to find rapid antigen tests to be able to then go back to work. That's been delaying the process, and then anyone that's tried to get a PCR test recently, I think the waiting time for results blown out to something like 7 days. Whereas back last year, you're getting it back within 24 hours often. So that's kind of been an issue too, just because of the number of people getting the infection. It's just kind of put a lot of strain on the testing facilities and the ability to get these rapid antigen tests, and that's meant that people haven't been able to return to work because you've got to show evidence that you're negative before you can show up.
Yep, well, there's that surge on getting RATs or rapid antigen tests into the country. Treasurer Frydenberg saying maybe they'll shorten the timeline to 5 days soon in terms of, from when you've been identified as having a case to when you can be cleared for back to work. So that's where it's having a knock-on effect, is these essential areas like meat processing. Matt, look, it's good to have you back with us on Flow for 2022 with reports on the cattle and the sheep markets, but where can we read more in between about what your analysis is in the markets?
Oh, look, we're regularly putting stuff on the Thomas Elder Markets website, so that's just www.thomaseldermarkets.com.au, and you can subscribe to it as well, Ricky. It's a free service, so if you want to keep updated as the articles come up, you can just whack your email in and you get notified as soon as we put something up.
Great. Well, Matt, thanks again for being with us, and we'll catch you again soon.
Thanks, Ricky. Take care.